Sherrell, also this past weekend with UNC hosting Minnesota in football. We did have some visits, both of the or most of the unofficial kind from some players that came to spend some time on campus. Can you tell us who those were?
Yeah, so Carolina had a few visitors, again, in-state guys. So Drake Powell was obviously there because he's going to be on campus a ton. Also, there was Cole Cloer, making sure I say his name correctly. He's a 2026, I guess we'll call him wing, guard, wing, forward, versatile player from Orange County High School in Hillsboro. Latrell Allman was also there. He's a 6'8" and a half, I think, you know, 6'9" big man from Richmond. And then Jackson Keith, a 2025 wing from Southern Durham, was there as well. Keith and Allman both play on Team Loaded on the Adidas circuit, which is also the AAU program of Jalen Withers and Armando Baycott.
And
So
I'm sorry, Almond is which class? 25 or
he's
26?
he's 26 as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So you
So
two
it's
26s and two 26s, a 25 and a 24.
There you go. Yep.
All right.
So they were all on campus over the weekend. We'll have a story up on Kluwer. Probably you probably actually have already read it, honestly. Hopefully it'll have already been posted by the time you see this. But he had a good time. He had some insights into pickup. He played pickup. Drake did as well. Not sure about Allman if he played or not. And Keith played as well. So it was a good run from what they said, and we'll have additional details. But no offers were given out to either of those guys, but also UNC was at Keith's high school yesterday, and they were also at Kluwer's high school yesterday. So definitely two guys to watch in state moving forward.
Sean, I'd like to ask you as well. What can you say about any of those four? Well, let's tell you what. Let's take Drake Powell out of the mix because we've all talked about him ad nauseum, and we probably will even a little bit later in the show. But Sean, can you tell us about anything about the games of either Jackson Keith, Latrell Allman, or Cole Cloer?
I think starting with Cloer, I mean, a lot of people got to watch him during Peach Jam with CP3 making the run in the 15 and under age bracket. I think I'll be interested to see what size does he get to by the time he enters high school. Definitely long and lanky right now. For him, ability to shoot the 3-pointer is probably first and foremost. But I think definitely more than just a shooter, ability to go left and drive hard to the basket. So I think it's going to be fun watching him develop, especially a local prospect. And then Jackson Keith, he played on the 16 and under circuit, but really strong scorer. Played really well at the Adidas tournament out here in California towards the end of the year. Almost an all-star event of sorts. Really, he graded out 95th percentile in terms of efficiency ratings on Synergy, which was fairly surprised at when looking at. So I think one for him, just kind of seeing how he develops, but both of those will be interesting for in-state prospects, just given how talented the 2024 class was and the focus on in-state early on. And 25, that hasn't been the case. 26, starting off just with these two, but kind of the North Carolina, Virginia focus. So we'll be interested to track how that continues, more so in the 2025 class, I'd say.
One thing to add about Kluwer, he's a really good shot blocker. He self-reports at 6'7", and I think it may be just a situation where he's still growing and he's still one of the tallest players even on 15s. But he just has great timing if you watch him play on shot blocking. And I would share this anecdote. He said basically, the YouTube videos where the kids like line up on the wing and try to dunk on each other. He kind of gave credit to that for him becoming a good shot blocker. He was like, we used to go in the driveway, lower the goal to 8.5 feet, and try to dunk on each other. And he's like, my timing got really good because we just did it all day, every day. So I thought that was interesting. But for him, that's something it's really good in addition to the 3-point shot. And then with Keith, he's a really strong, like well-built scorer, and I think there might be questions about athleticism or, some other areas of his game, but in the end, you kind of know he's going to figure out a way on the offensive end to get you 2 points. So that's usually pretty important. And to Sean's point, he's very efficient with it. So definitely, I think we're going to keep a close eye on both of those.
I can't say this for sure, but I feel relatively confident that the image of a kid in like 7th grade trying to block dunks on an 8.5-foot goal is going to endear this young man early on in his recruiting to a lot of fans, regardless of what fan base they claim. Appreciate the rundown there, Sean. I know it's early and it still blows my mind a little to be talking about kids from the 26 class. Yet here we sit. And then the last thing we want to talk about with some recruiting stuff. Sherrell, we saw some new rankings. Sean, I'm going to get each one of you guys to speak to this a little bit, but we've now got 2 UNC commits in the 24 class that are both in the top 10, and I can't remember when the last time that happened. I want to guess it was probably the guys that were on the 09 team, so the 06 class, I get. No, Ellington and Lawson, I feel like are probably it. Is that right, Sherrell? Okay, you're nodding your head, so I'm assuming that
Yeah,
means yes.
yeah. Brandon Wright, Wayne Ellington, and Ty Lawson.
And
in
people
06.
totally forget about Brandon Wright because he was such
Yeah.
a last minute addition and was one and done for North Carolina.
And the funny thing is that Elliot Cadeau would be top 10 too if he was still in 2024.
So it
would
would
have
be
3.
3, which is
Yeah.
that's absurd. Sean, I'm going to come to you first. What do you think it was about these guys' game, and if it was one thing that pushed Drake up in that top 5 spot? We felt like it was coming. We talked with some of the national recruiting guys for 24/7 that hinted that they felt really confident about it. I know you've been very much on the Drake train. Do you think if you could narrow down to one thing that got Drake Powell into that top 5, what was it over the summer?
Well, I mean, I think his performance at Peach Jam in terms of showing his just everything he can do. But I think in terms of what got him into the top 5 was still that potential of what he can do, given the ability to play on both sides, the explosiveness and the size. But I still think, he has a ways to go to, from a productivity standpoint of being that consistent top 5 player. Obviously, he showed a huge growth. Going from being ranked in the 50s when he was offered. I think a lot of questions: was he going to get an offer in late July of last year? So I think he showed he did turn that potential into production. But once again, being a top 5 player, no matter how weak or strong the class is still something now that there'll be a target on his back. But that consistency play great in Peach Jam, play great first session of EYBL in the spring, struggled in some other times, had some other camps where maybe didn't play at that level. So I think what really got him into that top 5 was Peach Jam, as well as the potential of what he can be in 1 to 3 years when you're looking out that way.
And make no mistake about it, it's not just, the fact that he's looked good and has continued to improve. I mean, there are legitimate, NBA folks who, work for NBA teams that are loving and remarking highly about his game. Sure, last question for the night about these new rankings. If you want to go ahead and I'll throw these out, but what I'd like you to speak to, Drake Powell being number 4, Ian Jackson comes in at number 10, and James Brown the third brings his hot pants in at 91. I'd love for you to tell me, what does it mean for North Carolina, for their recruiting profile, for Hubert Davis's clout on the recruiting trail, and then looking forward to the 25 class? What does it mean for UNC to have 2 guys in the top 10 right now?
You know, I think not as much as we probably think, because I think in our minds and some of the fan base's minds, maybe the Carolina brand isn't as strong nationally as it once was. And I mean, to a degree, that's a true statement. But I think the degrees to which it is true is different from what kind of the narrative I think among a lot of people is. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, like, to kids, it's still like, wow, I got a Carolina offer, or Carolina's interested in me. They're like, that's huge for them. And I think a lot of times the fan base and people who follow this stuff think it doesn't mean as much as it used to. So it's big, it's important, because you want to have that cool factor. And I think even more so, and nothing against Ian or Drake, more so than those two, I think Cadeau kind of was one that raised a lot of eyebrows, just because of how he plays and how funny he is to play with. Even if the guys in subsequent years probably have no chance of ever playing with him, it just says, Hubert Davis is willing to, let me do me, basically. But do me within the construct of the team. And I think that's an important message. That's one that even back to Caleb Love and RJ Davis, that has been said over and over. I can't tell you how many times we talked to guards, guys who, we never even published their stories because Carolina showed little interest or no interest, where it said, man, he gives his guards freedom. Like, look at Caleb Love, and now they've got Elliot Cadeau and Ian Jackson. And so I think just having that cachet among those guys is big. But the part about 2 top 10s, I think that's more for fans really, and people, media who follow it, than it is for the players, because they see what's on the court and they see what the other players are telling them, and that's how they go about their business.